let's turn to the Sunday talk show circuit, because Chuck Todd had Representative Nancy Mace on his show and spoke to her about the impeachment of President Biden. So, I mean, for people who might feel like they misheard me, no. This all sparked really from comments made by Representative Adam Kinzinger, who's on his way out, and a so-called moderate Republican who essentially just said that the election was not won by Donald Trump, which is the reality of the situation. So he gets a bunch of press off of that. But he said that the Republican majority in Congress might try to impeach Biden every week if they're able to get their way. And he was talking about Marjorie Taylor Green in particular. And so, like, this was, for some reason, despite the fact that it's obviously just another example of Republican insanity that has no merit to it. This was the topic of conversation on Sunday with Chuck Todd and Nancy Mace. And what's notable here is that Chuck Todd does not even ask what would he be impeached for, which I think would be the central question here, as I lay out that, like, there's really nothing there's no toehold here. I mean, Republicans had filed impeachment articles against Biden for withdrawing from Afghanistan, for example, or the eviction moratorium. These were the kind of stunts that they were engaging in. So it's obvious that there's no merit to this, and that should be the thrust of the conversation. But Chuck Todd just can't get enough of trying to get the headline about the impeachment in and of itself and the proceedings there, that he seemingly forgets to ask about, like, okay, on what grounds?
Republicans Kevin McCarthy put out his pitch for, they called it a commitment to America on this. And part of it in there was accountability, and it's kind of vague. But you've heard some of the details, and I know you've talked about the idea that there may be a special select committee. Do you expect an impeachment vote against President Biden if Republicans take over the House?
I believe there's a lot of pressure on Republicans to have that vote, to put that legislation forward and to have that vote. I think that is something that some folks are considering.
Wow.
Again, I'm someone who wants to, I want to follow the Constitution. It's really important. Oversight's important. But when I think of oversight of the federal government, I'm thinking about the waste, the fraud, and the abuse for the COVID-19 funding. You saw this administration just charge 44 people with a crime of stealing from the federal government $250 million. Those are the kinds of things that you need to make sure.
The thing that it's weird the way that she formulates that, because, like, we need to, and I'll cut back to us, but she says we need to look into, like, the waste, fraud, and abuse, and the thing that she cites is, like, an action against waste, fraud, and abuse, almost as if it's like we need to get in there and stop them prosecuting all of the people who donate to us that committed fraud through these programs. It just seems very strange. That's not impeachable there.
It's not, and it's just like I guess, it all boils down to, like, policy disagreements that they have. But they're trying to, for Republicans, always the best defense is a good offense. And so since Trump was impeached twice, they have to kind of throw everything at the wall that they can with Biden here.
We have oversight on getting to the origins of COVID-19, better understanding how it happened, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. We want to make sure that it doesn't happen again, at least in our lifetime, and we're keeping everyone safe in our country and around the world too.
But if these impeach Biden votes come up, how are you going to vote?
Again, I'm going to read how that bill is filed, what's in it, what evidence there was. I didn't vote to impeach the former president of the United States because I felt like due process was stripped away. I will not vote for impeachment of any president if I feel that due process has been stripped away for anyone. And I typically vote constitutionally, regardless of who's in power. I want to do the right thing for the long term, because this isn't just about today, tomorrow, this year's election. This is about the future of democracy. This is about protecting our Constitution. This is about protecting our freedoms and making sure my children and your children, everyone, their grandchildren too, grow up in the best country that it can be. And we have to work together and figure out the path forward, because the far fringes, the far right, far left, isn't going to cut it for the vast majority of America.
Okay, he's going to ask here.
Get over the first.
Pause for a sec. He's definitely going to ask. Is that it? Oh, okay. I thought we had a little more, because No, I checked a little bit before. He doesn't ask what for. What the hell for? What the hell for?
Impeach him for the lab leak theory.
And yeah, it's just like impeachment him on the origins of COVID-19 because Dr. Fauci, who obviously was working with Biden when he was under the Trump administration as well, you got to keep that in mind, was working with the Chinese to create COVID-19. I mean, obviously, Chuck, but how are you going to vote, Nancy? How are you going to vote? Like that's the story here, I guess. It's just how many tallies of how is your guest going to vote on impeachment of the president as opposed to like what would that impeachment entail?
And these sort of unserious fishing expeditions is all the Republican Party's been doing for our entire lives. Chuck Todd was born in 1972, which means he was in his mid-20s when the whole Bill Clinton impeachment scandal, which was just a fishing expedition among like the Whitewater and all these sorts of things that have been lost in memory now. Corruption politics, basically. Like, this is why you see how they're going after Lula, or they went after Lula, for instance, too, right? Like,
yeah.
This focus on corruption politics. And this is, the Republican Party's been doing this, the Benghazi thing, we saw that too. This is just the way that party operates. And Chuck Todd is old enough to realize it, if we are. And of course, he exists to allow the game to be continued to be played.
And to break news in his own way, right? Which is just like Nancy Mace says that she will vote to impeach President Biden. That's the thrust of like what he wants to pin down. And
which is a strong propaganda message for the Republicans, because a lot of people don't necessarily see or won't even read the headline, but that's a headline, right?
Yeah.
And Biden must have done something to justify it.
Stripping the context out of stripping the context out of the way that Republicans operate only benefits and aids and abets fascism and far-right politics, because when you actually understand what they're after and what they're searching for, the value of what they're proposing, that's when you're actually able to make a determination between, I don't know, say impeaching a president for trying to overturn the results of an election, and Biden maybe sitting too close to Dr. Fauci, the fascist, in a meeting or something.
Going to impeach Biden for Facebook suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Right. Impeach Biden for, instead of condemning his son in texts about his addiction, impeach him for saying, I love you, right?
Not continuing Title 42 or anything like that.
Not that, well, I mean, come on. He's going to get unimpeached for that. That's how that works.
Yeah, an impeachment, out of impeachment free card.
Bill V writes in Chuck Todd's defense, he did say wow in response to impeachment on Biden. You're right. There was a response there.
That was more of a wow. We got the news commodity
nice.
That we were angling for.
It's literally everything that's wrong with the press.
Money.
Just kind of encapsulated in that.
Should have been a cha-ching sound.
That's on us with the soundboard.